My name is Georgia, and 2.5 years ago, so it's in 2020, I quit my job and I started my own business. And as you can imagine, starting a business in 2020, it wasn't as I'd imagined. So essentially, I've traded the London city corporate lifestyle to living in Ibiza and working in Ibiza, setting up my business here. So, in this podcast, I'm going to sit by this beautiful cactus tree, and share with you all of the weird and crazy stories, plus all of the things I've learned and am still learning along the way. To start, I started a huge part of my journey by moving here, but that wasn't actually until last year, so in 2021. And the day I moved here, I was on my Ryanair flight to Ibiza and I took out this notebook and I started to write a diary, and I said to myself, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write in my journal every single day all of the things that I do in Ibiza, because I knew I would have some awesome stories. And so I'm going to start just by sharing a little bit about what I wrote. So this is on the 26th of July 2021. I said, okay, so this isn't quite the start I was hoping for, but here I am. And to be honest, now that I'm sat here on this Ryanair flight, my nerves are calm and I don't feel the pain in my heart. I think I've secretly been longing for this fresh start for a while, but I was too in love. I was waiting to know it was over for sure, but my God, did it hurt. I've been in pain for months now. It's been exhausting trying to love someone who isn't committed to me and keeping secrets behind my back. It's so funny when I read this because I was so wrapped up in this breakup that I was going through, but I knew that I had like this whole new start ahead of me. So it was this paradox of feelings where I was feeling really heartbroken, but I was also feeling quite excited for my new life. I had always dreamed about living in Ibiza and moving to Ibiza, but I kind of put it on the shelf and thought, oh, this is something I'll do, when I'm older, and not now, not whilst I'm starting my business and all of these things. But then things just start to fall into place to make it happen for me sooner. And this move of moving from London to Ibiza has been hands down the best move ever for me personally. And I think I've learned how powerful it can be to change your environment, because since I've changed my environment, I've changed my whole life. Oh! So here we go. It actually started when I was going through quite a lot of trouble in my relationship. It was just getting really, really difficult. And now I look back, ultimately I can see that we were two different people who were growing in different directions and wanted different things. But at the time, I was so heartbroken and het up on trying to make this thing work that I forgot about me and I forgot about my dreams. So it got to a point where I was like, okay, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna book 6 weeks in Ibiza. I'm gonna go there and spend a period of time there and then come back to the UK. So this was about May 2021 when I did that. And I said to my boyfriend at the time, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to Ibiza for 6 weeks. He was like, yeah, that's cool, like I'll come visit you. Great. Booked my flights, ready for that date, the 26th of July. And during that time period, I had no idea it would end up this way, but a lot of things happened that led towards that very day of my flight. So the day before I flew to Ibiza, I actually found out that my boyfriend had been cheating on me that day, the day before. So all my bags were packed and I was like, whoa. It like completely turned my world upside down. So I spent the day like crying in the bath. It was horrible. And then the next day I was like, right, well, I'm going to Ibiza. But I had a totally different outlook on it now. And I'd said previously to my one friend in Ibiza that I said to her, look, like I'm coming out for 6 weeks. Do you know anywhere that I could stay? And I was like looking online for places, and she said, you know what, I've got a room spare. Do you want to stay with me? So I said, yeah, great, I will. So I got to her house. I was on this flight, like, wow, okay, everything's changed for me now. And it was like the perfect time for a new start. I ended up really loving the 6 weeks that I spent here, but I think about 4 weeks in, I was like, okay, Ibiza's great, but if I'm gonna stay here, then I really need like friends here. Like I need a support group of friends. And it was so weird. I remember writing in my diary, it will take me too long to find the page now, but I was writing it in my diary. I was like, yeah, this is great, but like, to be honest, I need friends here. All my friends are in London. Like, I don't know if I can really make this work. And then it was so canny. It was so funny because it was almost like as soon as I said that, I started to meet people who lived here. And that was my problem. I'd met a lot of people who were doing a season here who were great, but I was like, oh, no one really lives here, you know, no one's doing anything or creating a business like what I wanted to do. And then it was actually that next day that I went to the Hub, which is a co-working space here in Ibiza. So my friend had said, get yourself to the Hub, put yourself out there, like meet new people. So I went there, and I actually did meet a friend, Suvi, there. And she invited me to come along to Pikes for this like yoga meditation type event. So I was like, great, this is definitely a bit of me. And at this event, I was so blown away because I met people there that were so ambitious, fun. You know, one girl, she was like a DJ, she was working out here. And the other person I met who actually was hosting the event, and she, you know, they were hosting events all over Ibiza. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. Like, you can really make a life out here. And then I just started to meet so many people here that I was like, great, okay, now I actually have my friend group. And then that really came from like putting myself out there. And then it got to a point where I was like, okay, I'm loving it, I've got my friend group, but like, where am I gonna live? What am I gonna do? And at this point, I only had 6 weeks in my friend's apartment, and she had someone else coming in, so I had to find somewhere else to go. So I was just letting people know. I told everyone I met, I was like, by the way, I'm looking for somewhere to live. Like, if you know anyone else who's looking for a housemate or has a place to rent, let me know. And then this girl messaged me on Instagram, and she said, oh, hey, like, I've seen that you're looking for somewhere to live, me too. Do you want to meet for a drink? And I was like, okay, great, yeah, sounds great. And she's Irish, and we went and we met for a drink. Her name is Nicole, and we got on really, really well. And I met these other two women out there, and they were all building businesses, like had worked in events and were doing wicked things. I was like, wow, this is really, really cool. And Nicole said to me, she was like, yeah, like I'd love to live with you, but I'm a bit worried about your visa, because if you know, you're from the UK, you've just got here, like you're not really going to be able to get residency, la la la, you know. So I was like, okay. And so then this like hunt for me to have a visa started. And I remember I was actually, I made it my mission. I was like, I've got to get this visa, like I've got to stay here. Like, for some reason at this point I was like, this is my only option, like this is what I have to do. And so I was writing it in my diary every single day. I was writing, I will get my visa by the 30th of October. And this was in, I think it was August by this point. Every single day, I'm so grateful for my visa by the 30th of October 2021. Every single day. And it was like exhausting writing this, and I was kind of thinking like, is this gonna happen? And it was probably one of the most stressful things I've ever done, because I also had to go back to the UK to apply for it. So between the UK and Ibiza, I at one point was clearing out my old flat that I lived in with my ex-partner, crying all over the floor, clearing my things, starting my new life. I actually remember when I went back to the UK, I was driving on the M1 to go and clear out my flat, and I was in my Mini and I was driving down, like, yeah, new start, and I broke down on the motorway. I was like, what is going on? And I remember broken down on this motorway. Like, my car's a new car, it shouldn't have broken down. I had no idea really what it was. And I was sat there at the side of the motorway, and this man that was like working, like the roadworks people, took me to like the little huts in the one of the little huts on the side of the road where they like the workmen go. I was sat in there like, wow, this must be like a new low point of my life. I was crying. I was like, he was like, are you okay? He was like, it's just a car, don't worry, like, you're safe, that's the most important thing. And I knew that, and I was grateful for that, but at the same time I was like, blammin' heck, like, I'm trying to start my new life here and it's not going how I want, and I've got to go and clear out my old apartment, which is like full of like photos and memories of me and my ex-partner at the time. And the guy was just looking at me like, are you okay? And I was like, I'm not okay whatsoever. So that was really tough, but thankfully I did get back on the road after a panicked phone call to my dad. And then I moved out all my stuff. But long story short, I went through this really rigorous process of getting a visa, and I realised that it was possible. And before I knew it, I had an email from the Spanish consulate saying, your visa's been approved. Go to London, get this piece of paper, and you're all good. So I did. And that was like probably one of my proudest moments, actually. Like, really committing to starting this new life for myself and doing something I was really bad at, like administrative work. Like, I hate red tape. Like, in my ideal world, like, you wouldn't really have countries. Like, you'd have all the nice culture aspects of it, but you wouldn't really have countries, like, or passports or things you have to do to be able to let into places. I much prefer like a free world, so I hate the idea of all these things, let alone documents and proving that I've not got a criminal record or whatever you have to do to get a visa. So that really started it all off. And then by the time I got back to Ibiza, it was winter again, and it was October, which is actually the time of year it is now. So it's actually a year ago that I really kind of started to make my life settled here in the winter. A lot of people don't live in Ibiza for the winter. Like, the population, I think, is like, it goes up to like 1 million over summer and then down to 300,000 in the winter. So there's hardly anyone here, and a lot of people are like, oh, it's dead, like there's nothing happening. But I saw like an amazing side to Ibiza where we were like hiking every weekend, and there was just like this beautiful community of people and like dinner parties, and I absolutely love it. Really, really love it. Oh yeah, here we go. So yeah, it got to winter, and I've actually got here, that's so interesting, I've got Ibiza Diaries winter edition written in my diary. I say, my residency got approved before the end of October, just like I'd asked. I feel so grateful to be able to stay here for winter. I'm excited to see a new, quiet and magical side to the island. It's the 7th of November now, so I've had some time to settle in, and it's been truly wonderful. When I'm driving across the island, all I see and feel is mountains, space and beauty. Yeah, that is it. It's amazing. And so I spent a lot of time looking inwards and getting to know the other side of the island, which is where really like my quote unquote spiritual awakening